I set up this group because I was concerned about the number of young people graduating secondary education and higher education directly into unemployment or underemployment. And I graduated 9 years ago now, and the problem still hasn't really left us. What's great about the world today, though, is there's immense opportunity out there. Young people have access to technology that the King of England couldn't have dreamed about 60 years ago. And they have so much power in their iPhone or in their smartphone, with their the computer systems they have. There's immense opportunity in the world, and we just really want to understand how the education system can better prepare young people for the world of work. I felt that when I was at university, the business community and the employer community was very lukewarm about approaching students and getting them into work aggressively. My vision is that young people should be entering their first job at a high level the Monday morning after they graduate, not years later, drifting through careers. I'd like to go ahead and begin the formal discussion here. As I say, I'm going to. We've got an agenda here. If all the audience members would like to turn to it and can follow it through, we also have some diagrams. The goal of this discussion is to highlight the issues around youth unemployment in this area and nationally, and come up with solutions to how we can get young people better prepared. Crawley, this region of Sussex, is a particularly strong area for getting young people into careers, so we want to highlight the benefits, but there's also a lot of work to do as technology and innovation rushes ahead in the business world. We need to make sure education is keeping up. We need to make sure recruiters are keeping up, and we've got a ton of great experts here that are going to be able to help us do that. My goal for DPAF is to do a big tour next year in Britain to tie in with the general election and make sure that youth unemployment is one of the major topics on the docket next year, as it should be. The pipeline of young people into the British economy is what's going to sustain us and strengthen our country going forward. What I usually do with these discussions is I kick off by inviting everyone to introduce themselves and tell us where they're from, and I'm going to do that now. I'd like to go in clockwise direction, starting with Sarah Wright.
Hello, I'm Sarah Wright, Principal of Central Sussex College.
Jane Middlemiss, I'm the Director of Organisational Development at an SME International Logistics Group.
Hello, I'm Andy Forbes, Executive Director for Business Development here at Central Sussex College.
Chris Mayman, I'm Chair of the Corporation here at Central Sussex College and also Chair the Crawley Local Economy Action Group.
Hi, I'm Miranda Davis. I'm Director of Emerging Talent for Talis Group in the UK.
Hi, I'm Greg Ames. I'm a broker at the Monarch Partnership, also an undergraduate and the youngest on the table.
I question that.
Hi, I'm Tom Banham. I'm from Nestle and I manage all our entry-level recruitment on a national level.
Good morning, my name's Nick Broom. I'm the MD of PVL, Specialist Vehicle Graphics Company.
I'm Martin Stone from Topsy Turvy. We also run a training academy with 37 students here in Crawley.
I'm Duncan Crowe. I'm a West Sussex County Councillor and a Crawley Borough Councillor.
My name is Ed Heaver. I am the MD and owner of Serve Legal, who employ 18, 19-year-olds to deliver age tests all around the UK, Ireland and Australia.
Hi, good morning. It's Darryl Gaylor, Regional Director for the Royal Bank of Scotland, responsible for the corporate and commercial lending business in London and the South East.
Morning, my name's Deborah Weisholt from Economic and Social Engagement at the University of Brighton, and I'm managing our developments in the Gatwick Diamond area.
Morning, Guy Hilton, General Manager of the Hilton London Gatwick Airport.
Morning, Jeremy Taylor, Chief Executive of Gatwick Diamond Business. We're the local business membership and networking organisation for the region.
Good morning, Henry Smith, Member of Parliament, Crawley constituency.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. It's great to know we got such an esteemed group of people here. With the career planning, you need all the stakeholders around the same table, and we've got a very wide and diverse range of people, and I can't wait to hear their thoughts here. So let's kick off. Crawley's overall unemployment rate is 2.7%. Yet the unemployment rate for young people is 3.4%, and then nationally we're at 19%. 2.5 million young people are on the dole, working part-time or in jobs for which they are overqualified. That's 4% of the British people. 1.2 million are underemployed, 1.3 million are unemployed. Unemployment in West Sussex is 5.5%, the southeast of England 5.7%, and then for Great Britain it's 7.5%. So what are the strengths of the Gatwick Diamond region when it comes to helping young people into careers, and what are the weaknesses? Jeremy, would you mind kicking us off with that question?
I think the big strength is that we've got a very well protected economy. Everyone around the table knows that we've got an airport just to the north of us, and I think the airport brings economic diversity. We can see that there's a lot of aviation jobs, but in fact around the table, I think apart from your hotel, there's none of us that are directly related to the airport in terms of the employment opportunities we bring. What that brings us is actually quite, it brings an issue as well, because we've got very strong employment, and it's easy for people to find sort of easy options in terms of career progress. The strengths in terms of helping young people into careers are the partnerships and the organisations that exist in the area with, I think Takeoff has just been launched recently, which is a young person's careers programme. We've got Young Startup Talent here, which looks at entrepreneurial activity. The relationships between the college, in fact the colleges across the Gatwick Diamond, and the universities, albeit not in the Diamond but working with the Diamond, and then the schools as well. So there's good partnerships, but obviously we could do more.
Okay. Henry, could you make some comments on that as a politician in the area?
One of the things I feel very fortunate about is representing an area that is extremely economically vibrant. So Jeremy has just mentioned the fact that obviously we have the world's busiest single runway 2 terminal airport, literally a couple of miles from here. We have some world-class companies that have located here because of the geographical position of Crawley. But in the past, too many of the young people in Crawley haven't actually accessed those first-class employment opportunities that exist, that people have commuted into Crawley to fill those roles, and that a lot of young people haven't been able to take advantage of those. And a few years ago, the amount of young people going on to higher education, not that necessarily going on to higher education is the right route for every young person, but that rate was only 17% 5 years ago. So what I'm keen to do is to ensure that particularly the young people, but the population generally of Crawley, benefits from the world-class employment that exists. If you were to draw a 3 or 4 mile radius around where we're sitting, that exists within some of the first-class companies that we have represented here today, and others as well. So forming that link between local young people, the kind of enterprises we have here, household names in many respects, but also smaller enterprises as well that exist here, and doing that through institutions like Central Sussex College is really, to my mind, what we can do better at achieving further still.
You know, Ed, you're employing a lot of young people in this area. Do you feel they're taking advantage of the opportunities that are out there?
That's an interesting question. Do I think they're taking advantage, or are they being taken advantage of? I think there's a bit of both. I mean, I would peel it back a bit. When I take on people, and it's not only around here, it's all around the country, what depresses me is some of the basics they can't do. So things like written English is very poor. The ability to organise themselves is not fantastic. And, you know, it is quite frustrating sometimes when you want to give people opportunities and actually sometimes just don't have the basics to get out of bed in the morning, organise themselves to do a visit, you know, find a postcode, either get on a car or get in a car or get on a bus or a train, and they just don't have that wherewithal. You know, they seem to do D of E's and all this sort of thing, which if I see D of E on a CV, I now go reject, because it just seems to be like a badge of something rather than actually a skill. So, you know, I think there is things that government and education can do for young people, but I think also young people as well, sometimes, it may be a bit controversial, are guilty of just, especially around here, when it's quite, there's quite a few opportunities, money's quite prevalent, that they are sitting on their backsides, not doing a whole lot. And I've said that's not relevant to people here, because you're almost preaching to converted. It's the people who are, not here, people who are, we're struggling to get to, who worry me really. And actually, one thing I would say is I employ people from the northeast, northwest. I've got a lad who lives in Huddersfield. I've got 2 lads who live in Redcar, and one of the reasons why I do employ them is because they're hungry, they want to work, they're probably in environments that are tougher than around here, and they bloody bend their backs for me.
Well, I think that's very interesting. I wonder if I get an educator's point on that. Andy, I wonder if you could let us know, are young people coming out of college without these soft skills? Are they coming out of college not motivated? What are you seeing in the students that you teach?
Well, I mean, it is a fact, and we've said it before as a college, and we're very concerned about it, that about something around 42% of people leave school without having 5 good GCSEs and without having English and maths in particular. As a college, we delivered around 1,400 literacy and numeracy qualifications under level 1 in the year 2011-12. And it's something that we as a college have to take very seriously, because there is a real need and demand for people to have those low-level skills. That said, we take very seriously the agenda around upskilling people in both the vocational qualifications that they need and the theoretical qualifications, and also the soft skills that they need. We hear over and over again from our employers, and I spend a lot of time trying to convince people to take apprentices in particular, for instance, and we hear again and again it's the communication skills, it's the basic, look you in the eye and shake your hand, be on time, and et cetera, and it is very high on our agenda to ensure that we instill those into people right from day one that they come to us. But I have to say, there are some people who have a long way to go, and they leave school with a long way to go, and we have to spend a lot of energy and time getting those basic skills in. And obviously the concern for us is that if people enter the workforce without that level of skill, they will tend to stay there and get stuck in underemployment, and then potentially get very kind of unreliable employment, and then fall out and end up being NEET or unemployed. So the other thing that we want to try to do is engage with businesses and make sure that people who are in employment and working and at those lower skill levels still are re-engaged and getting back into apprenticeships and back into college courses, so that we can keep trying to upskill them as we go.
Yeah, I mean, every one of these discussions we do, this issue of soft skills is a major point, and wonder if you could give us some ideas about how to solve that.
The other thing I'd point is that I think the reason why my business has grown so fast is that people are very wary about employing young people. Young people and women, actually, I would say, are 2 areas where business in general just don't want to get involved with them. I employ both, and they've been fantastic for me. Young people do provide a bit of a management issue for some of the reasons that we've discussed already, but that involves me and my team putting more time into them, understanding what is required to manage them, and after a period of time, and Pete, he came through Serve Legal, you can get some fantastic results and competitive advantage, because that's what we're talking about. Well, from my point of view, that's what it's all about. I want to be the best age testing business, and I am the age testing business in the UK that there can be, and that is what it's all about. And I think there is a stigma to employing young people, because they have social media, technology, and best will in the world, I'm 45, social media and technology to a degree has passed me by, and they're on it all the time, they understand how it works, and I'm like, shit, what's going on, but fortunately I can harness that, and they help me with my recruitment and communication with that community, and I think we're not great in the UK at managing per se. I don't think we seem to manage with a degree of not bigotry, but I think there's a certain level of class and a certain level of I don't know, bias towards certain people, certain groups in society, then that's how we manage. And, you know, that's something that really needs to be improved. Whether you do that through education, I don't know, but it needs, you know, again, I think that's where and my business part, that's where we've been successful, not only in age testing, but we've also run pubs and pub setups very successful as well. And it's about getting rid of some of the myopic views of what people look like, where they come from, and all that sort of thing. It's about actually getting the people who can do the job for you, you know, and work the best way they can, and
Sure.
trying to mould the business around there.
Sure. Well, let me just want to bring Greg into this conversation because, you know, you're the youngest person at the table here. What are the young people have got an image problem here by the sounds of things. You know, what do you find as the strengths and weaknesses for career planning, and also this issue of young people, you know, not being reliable, not being motivated?
Well, it seems that soft skills have come around this table a lot. I've come from a background of, prior to luckily getting into brokering, I was in the Royal Marines. So my soft skills are fantastic, and they had to be, because that's what you need to actually even get in before you even start training. And I came out with serving and charity work and things like that, but I didn't have a degree. So when applying for positions, regardless of all of these other talents I have, I still couldn't get the opportunity to have a interview. So I feel that people are giving strengths and weaknesses, yeah, that's great, but and young people aren't even getting the opportunity to have an interview just because they haven't got a degree. I haven't got a degree. I've been lucky enough to get into a fantastic role, but there are other people out there that have the same skills as me, maybe even a similar background, maybe even better. They're still not getting that initial opportunity, and Serve Legal they are, because that's the area they target. But a lot of other places, when you see online, the initial thing is a degree 2-1 or higher, and I haven't got that.
So do you think going to university is the only way to go, or is it a weakness these days? I mean, you chose not to go to university. How do you feel you've benefited from that?
Well, I actively chose not to go to university because I feel that the cost of it was quite high, and the information I could gain was all across the internet anyway. The internet's so large, I could go onto the internet and find all the information that they're learning. So why would I spend £9,000 a year when I could do it all on my iPhone at home in bed? What's the point? What's the point of me getting up, going to these places, away from my family and all these things, and then having a debt over my head the whole time just so I can have a piece of paper to say I need to get an interview, when my interview skills are great, and I've been told that every time I've gone for a position.
Well, a lot of young people are choosing your path, and you know, I'm hearing this a lot. You know, some great points there. I just want to move this conversation forward a little bit about what local industries are experiencing a skills gap between the difference between the skills they require from young people and the skills young people actually have coming out of university. Martin, I wonder if you could you know, carry this forward, make some comments on that.
Well, we don't actually employ anybody from university because most of our people are sort of 16 to 18-year-olds. But I must say, agree with some of the things that have been said around this table, that a lot of the problems are before they come to a college. We work very closely with local comprehensive schools, and I'm finding that an awful lot of kids coming out of school and they don't even know what they want to do. They've got no idea. And this is quite a big problem. They're not getting the right sort of encouragement at school. Such a large percentage have no idea what they want to do. And the other thing is, also when they're coming out of school and they're expected to go for jobs, they don't have any interviewing skills. They've had no training on it. The kids we deal with from the local schools, one of the first things we do is have a whole day just on interviewing techniques, how to act, how to dress, how to walk, how to talk, and just to give give a good impression. And this is something, some of them come for interviews looking a mess. They don't even have a list of questions to ask. I mean, I've interviewed somebody quite recently, and they didn't even ask her what the salary was. I mean, you know, and when they left, I said, "Oh, actually, don't you want to know how much you're going to get paid?" And they went, "Oh, yeah." So a lot of this might go back to before college. It's instilling something into them that give them some idea of what they can do.
Sure. Well, I want to ask Tom. You know, you're recruiting people on a wide scale for an important company. You know, do you back this up? What skills gap are you seeing between the people you hire and the skills you need them to do?
Well, Our roles cover both school leaver, so from we've got a commercial school leaver programme based in Gatwick. We've got apprenticeships, both technical and commercial, and graduates. And funnily enough, we see more skills gaps when they leave university than when they actually leave school. We've been massively surprised. So our school leaver programme, we support individuals to go to university, and we sponsor them. I suppose we were quite nervous at first about the level and standard and how to pitch the programme. But we've been absolutely surprised and shocked at the level that they're demonstrating. I take your point on a number of different things that you need to give a bit of coaching and support. So we do actively do that before they come to an assessment centre to ensure that they are coming in a suit. They know what to expect. They know what the interview process is going to be. So I think it's more for an employer to communicate the expectations beforehand. But the only issues we have with people coming from school is more the pastoral care, because obviously the maturity level is not what you'd expect from a graduate who's potentially going away from home. So we see more issues with our graduates, actually from a retention point of view and motivation, because they think, I'm leaving university, you should employ me, where school leavers tend to be much more motivated and want to work for you. So that's kind of the contrast that we're seeing with the different entry levels into our business.
Yeah, Chris, I want to ask you, because you've worked in the corporate world and now you're board of governors here at the college. You kind of covered both sides of this issue. Are you helping to implement programs to improve soft skills and to make young people better prepared for the workplace? How do you feel the college is helping with this issue?
I think the college is very much addressing the soft skills, but also the relevant skills for the job. But I also think pulling together a number of the strands, it's a bigger issue than that. I think one of the people groups we haven't mentioned are the family and the role models. And I think particularly in this area, you need to break that cycle of what the expectations are for the young people and what types of roles that they can go into. And I think people talk about help for employability skills. Jeremy mentioned Takeoff. And that is something that is there to help people understand what good looks like going to work. I mean, I was told of somebody who interviewed, it was a school leaver, interviewed and said the job involves working every other Saturday, and on a Monday morning you have to get in early. And he went, don't do Saturdays because I'm out drinking heavily on a Friday night, and I can't do that time on a Monday. Surprisingly, he didn't get offered the job, but it is that understanding of, it's a two-way contract.
Sure. Young person motivation is something I'm hearing a lot here. Can you talk about that with your students at Brighton? You got any comments?
I think one of the things that
get that mic there. Yeah, pull it forward.
Okay. I think one of the things that happens that universities are exactly the same as other organisations is that we tend to blame the education institution beforehand in terms of, so as universities we say students aren't prepared when they come to us. As colleges, sometimes we're guilty of saying that schools, they're not prepared by the time that they come to colleges. And then as well when we say that students aren't prepared when they go into the world of work. I know from my experience, I certainly wasn't prepared when I went to the world of work. It's a culture shift. And it's a culture shift going from college to university. It's a culture shift going from school to college. And so obviously we need to work on employability skills, and universities are key in that, and we know that we need to up our game in what we do. And I think every university that you speak to is trying very hard to do that in terms of some of the softer skills as well as the curriculum skills that they'll say. Obviously, I dispute what Greg said in terms of being able to, as you would expect, being able to learn everything from your iPhone, because I think some of the skills that you get from university are those same skills that you would get from employment, about turning up, about handing your things in on time. And in terms of first year at university, we really recognise that a lot of our students don't have those same skills that they will have when they graduate. And you'll find that's reflected in the way of our curriculum, in that first years often don't count for as much, or sometimes not any, of your degree, because we recognise that in your first year you will need a huge amount of support to get you ready for being actually in university. So I think that we are all guilty of being in a blame culture of saying when young people come to us, they're not ready. And obviously, employers need young people to be ready, but I do we all have a part to play in that, and to recognise that as employers, we need to put time and effort into developing. As somebody who employs, I am looking for somebody. I wouldn't necessarily want to employ everybody who has the skills. When I look for jobs, I don't look for something that I have every single skill, because I want to try and learn something in the new job that I come into. So when I'm looking to employ people, I'm looking to employ people who might not necessarily have all those skills, but are hungry to learn.
Sure. Hey, Daryl, I want to get back to this skills gap issue. Are you seeing, beyond the soft skills, a gap between what you expect young people to do and what they're actually capable of doing when they join a big firm like NatWest?
Not so much a skills gap. We, despite all the press recently around banking, there's still a good number of people that want to come to the industry. So we're often blessed with a good chance to sort of select from a wider group. The challenge for me, and it does come back to me a little bit around the soft skills, is that I've seen some fantastic CVs, and when you meet the people, you're just underwhelmed. So you might stick them in a big dark room with a big spreadsheet, but you wouldn't let them anywhere near a customer. And unfortunately, a lot about what we do is building empathy and rapport with clients, potential clients. So, that people bit does come through massively. And it's quite difficult to teach people that. But I think there is something in around, sort of Ed was talking about, having that hunger and that enthusiasm. And I sort of see it professionally, I see it personally with my own two kids. The subjects they enjoy, the subjects that they feel passionate about, the teachers they like, they do well in. And the ones they feel less passionate about and they're less keen on, they don't do so well in. And I've got one lad at uni and a daughter that probably won't go to university. So I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. But the secret is to understand and unlock that potential and that enthusiasm and that passion. And if you do that, then they will throw themselves into that role. So yes, you need the skills. I think Greg was saying, you need the skills to open the door. You need the CV to open the door. But actually, once you get through that door, for me, it's all about you as a person. And we're certainly recruiting for values and behaviours and attitude rather than necessarily experience and skills.
Sure. Well, I want to move on to the big opportunities out there. If young people can solve these problems of image and motivation and the interpersonal skills, where are the actual opportunities in this area? Jeremy, can you let us know what's coming down the pike here?
Yes, I think surprisingly enough, for a country that has apparently got no manufacturing, I would say the future lies in manufacturing and engineering, particularly in this region. And across the southeast. The southeast has got I believe, the highest manufacturing across the whole of the country now. And it's great to see that stuff that's made is predominantly exported as well. It's a very important part of where our future lies. The other major piece for this immediate area is around professional services, so the banks, accountants and solicitors. We are equivalent to, we'll argue about whether we're first, second or third, so let's say we're equivalent to Reading and Southampton in terms of professional services opportunities. And we will also see across the next few years, I think the digital media opportunities are going to come out of Brighton and move into this area as well. Brighton it's very sweeping, have to be careful of being too generalistic, but Brighton is full in terms of its employment land of any great significance. And the companies that are looking to expand and grow, they see the opportunity here. They see the communications with Gatwick and with the railroad and everything else. And so I think those are three main areas that we can see opportunities. I also just want to caveat that I've met some pretty rubbish older people at interviewing as well. So, don't take it all. There are some really rubbish old people, but let's not talk about them today.
Hey, Duncan, where are the jobs of tomorrow in this area? What are you seeing going forward for opportunity for youth?
Well, thank you. Well, certainly Germany has outlined the higher skilled sector, but we shouldn't forget we have a very large employment base of lower skills as well, particularly in the service sector, in catering and hospitality, and in leisure across the area. Is often the first opportunity for young people to gain employment is perhaps in those lower skilled jobs where hopefully in many cases they may learn greater skills and move on to something else, or sometimes they may indeed get stuck in those types of employment. Indeed, as we've heard already, that there's been a large number of lower skilled jobs around.
So what do we need to do to help young people move up the chain for career progression? They've started out in the local trades, and then how do you, as a counsellor, encourage them to move up?
Well, we're talking more perhaps about further education, but ideally we want to start off better so that people are leaving secondary school with the skills that we've talked about already. in an ideal world. And certainly listening to some of the debate, and as a representative of the local education authority, and particularly what Martin and Ed said about having young people able with those soft skills and those people skills once they've left school. Because I'm certainly feeling it. We talked about blame passing and what have you. And certainly there's a message for me to take back to the education authority about how children are coming out of school with the right skills that are ready for work, and also how they're able to evolve skills, because employment will not stand still. So the young people of today, in 20, 30 years' time, there'll be different skills that will be required.
Or in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, well, indeed. And it's having that ability to be able to learn new skills as a lifelong career.
Sure. Well, I think that's a really good point. And, something I want to ask you, Nick, is because educators are getting a bit of a bad rap at this table. It seems like the onus is always on them to teach these soft skills. What responsibility have business got to go into the classrooms and start contributing to the education of the next generation?
That's a good point. I think there is a big thing about the soft skills they come out with, but the biggest thing I think that any business can do, this new environment, the casual environment that we've all started to encourage about no ties, casual shirts, jeans, actually portrays a bad impression when you bring youngsters into the office as well. So you're then starting off an expectation of it can be casual, it can be easygoing, when I think we need a bit more formality into things. I think from the from the skills side of it's experiential skills. If we've got people who've got the right attitude and the right aptitudes, we can teach them the skills. It's turning up in the morning, it's turning up to an interview early rather than 10 minutes late. It's actually turning up. We had 30 interviewees for something recently, we had 4 turn up. Now, there were lower skilled jobs, but the point is, what is the point? Why are we bothering? So I ended up employing an older person, Jeremy.
Can I come back on this blame thing? I pay, at my company, 250 grand for the corporation tax? Where does that go? Right, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to, I'm not passing any blame to anybody, but I'm annoyed, that I can't have a say when I'm putting something back into the economy and I can't see where it's going. What's wrong with that? I'm not trying to, throw it around and call people out and all that sort of thing. I'm annoyed by that, and I'm not happy that I can't have a say about the fact that every year I'm a successful businessman and I'm paying corporation tax quite, 20% or 21% or wherever it is now, and I don't know where it's going.
Sure.
I've got every right to say if I'm not happy with the education that certain people are getting who are coming through my door for an interview.
Well, that's
I agree with your point about turning up on time and all that sort of thing, wearing ties, don't know, but I think that's you made some good points, but
Well, let's try and solve this. I think it's a valid comment you're making. What innovative programs can we come up with or what presently exists to promote entrepreneurship or to help young people into work? Guy, what's going on at Hilton with recruitment programs and promoting entrepreneurship at your company?
I mean, I guess I think I'm going to stand and defend the honour of the service industry at this point. And I take the point that it's perceived as a lower skill base to start with, but I think anybody that can look after 800-900 people at breakfast on a busy Wednesday morning has a skill set that many people would be proud of.
Just 17 is a challenge, at breakfast.
And the ability to be flexible, with the delayed flight world, and having that ability to deal with pressure suddenly is a real skill. So I don't necessarily think the service sector should always be seen as the lowest common denominator, really. I think there's some great skills and some superb young people, but ultimately they do need to have the right attitude. In terms of Hilton, we've got many routes in. There is the graduate route in. We have an international program from an elevator. It's called the Elevator program, which means you have to be multilingual and you can travel. You have to have a dual-based role once you're in that program. We have a UK graduate program, which moves you around 4 different bases in the UK over a 2-year period. You can come in as an apprentice, and we have a very successful apprenticeship program as well, and some great examples of people who've developed through the organisation. We also have then a route in to come in full-time job and work your way up, and we have 4 or 5 different development programs that take you from a full-time member of staff of the team through a supervisory program as a head of department, whether that's in the kitchen, restaurant, bar, housekeeping, and then further programs that extend your experience up to general management level. So as a company, we cover all the bases. You can come in, right at the bottom, and there are people in our organisation who've done that. We've got people in our organisation who've come in as apprentices who are now, running the European side of the business. So,
well, that sounds like a terrific place to work and build a career. How do you see Hilton moving forward as a company over the next 20 years? I mean, there's obviously a lot of change with companies like Airbnb and people staying in other people's houses, via online trades. Do you see that's the future of Hilton? Maybe in the future, Hilton will be, a sort of an online forum, or will it still be big buildings with people staying overnight?
Difficult for me to say. I'm only running one hotel, but I think the future of our organisation is certainly in multi-brands, and bringing in brands that fit with every different style of traveller and user of hotels. I think if you look at some of the stuff that's happening in the States, we're innovating our business. So whereas room service is perceived as being a dying service that many people don't want, we're innovating what that might look like and putting sort of market shops into some of our hotels in the States, doing more takeaway style room service delivery so it's fast and efficient. I think we are competing with some of the bed and breakfast and budget sector, if you like, with some of our different brands that are coming in. I think as an organisation, we're realising we have to move quickly. So the online presence and to compete with the online travel agents and how you book and choose the hotels has to be better, our online presence. From an employment point of view, I think we've got to realise that the young people we employ communicate very differently to the way we did and do, and we have to be able to react to that in the way we communicate with them in our businesses. And they want to grow really quickly. That's one thing we're noticing. There's no time to stop. They want the next job and the next job, and it's how we innovate within our industry and our business to allow them to do that while also building their skill set and getting them ready for that next job. But they want to move really quickly.
Sure. Well, I want to stay on this innovation topic. Henry Smith, talk about the importance of entrepreneurship in this region and whether that's the path for young people to move forward in their careers.
Thank you very much, David. I mean, first of all, just in response to Ed, say that corporation tax in the UK is now lower than any other country in the G7, including the United States, including Germany, as part of the government's long-term economic plan. And that's a party political broadcast from somebody who isn't a member of the government, so that one's for free. But I do think entrepreneurship is very important, and I think one of the ways that can be engendered is by actually taxing business less and by reducing the amount of bureaucracy, regulation, and red tape that business has to grapple with. Now, there's still far too much of it, but a lot of it has been reduced. But there's a lot further way to go. One of the great successes of the British economy throughout the last 300 years has been innovation and enterprise. I mean, let's not forget that the Industrial Revolution started in this country, and British business is seen as innovative, as unique around the world. I mean, I just look at a company whose headquarters is about 2 miles from here, Virgin Atlantic. It's actually not a very big airline, but it gives the impression of being a global airline, and one that is a unique British brand. So I think that there should be nothing to stop young people with innovative entrepreneurial ideas, being able to put those into practice. But young people need to know how they can go about doing that. And one of the things that I've been delighted to have a very small part in and support, and indeed the launch of the 2015 event takes place at a breakfast event tomorrow. Young Startup Talent is something that Matt Turner and Lorraine Nugent, who are in the audience today, have provided, which is a sort of Dragon's Den style, where local young people can pitch their ideas for the chance of winning, £50,000 worth of business support, which is fantastic. Working in conjunction with other local companies, with local banks, to be able to promote that. So I do think the young people's ideas are critical, and it's important that those of us around this table, whether we be in public administration and government, whether we be in academia, whether we are in the commercial sector, actually come together as a network as we are this morning, and we do in other forums as well, to provide the opportunity in the environment where if people do have a bright idea, it can be the future. I mean, you know, we were talking about social media earlier on. Facebook is less than 11 years old, and that was the idea of a student in their dorm room. So you know, who knows where we'll be in 10 or 11 years' time. And let's hope that the latest innovation comes from a young person in Crawley.
Hey Miranda, I wanted to ask you about that. You know, young people in the sales group, if they have great ideas, what opportunities are there for them to develop those? Are they supported, or is the existing structure of the company that, you know, things have to sort of stay the way they are?
No, absolutely not. So, I mean, one of our critical issues as an engineering and manufacturing firm, twofold. We have a significant age profile issue. So we have massively increased our graduate and apprentice recruitment into the business to future-proof where we're going to fall off a cliff in 10 to 15 years' time. Succession planning, though, has become an issue. With the age legislation, we scrapped our retirement age, so we're increasingly seeing people working longer in the business, which is a challenge when you're bringing young people through, because we're not retiring people at the back end. So where are those opportunities? And I think that in part, in relation to the point Tom made around retention, is potentially where we lose our graduates, because they struggle to see their career path up through the organisation. Retention of apprentices, though, is about 98%. We lose very, very few apprentices that we bring into the business, whereas the graduate attrition rate would be much higher. I echo all of the points on the panel in terms of soft skills and communication and so on. But for us as a technology and engineering business, actually our greatest headache is not being able to fill our graduate engineering vacancies. So our education and outreach programs are almost entirely focused around STEM, because for the last 5 years across Thales UK and including the Crawley site, I haven't filled all of my graduate engineering vacancies.
Sarah, what do you say about that? Is STEM the way forward? Are you re-engineering your curriculum here to promote science, technology, and engineering? How do you respond to that?
I certainly think it's part of the way forward. We do map our curriculum to make sure that we are tapping into those areas that Jeremy outlined for us earlier. So we are extending our engineering curriculum, we're developing our finance areas of study. I do want to come back to the soft skills, actually, and because that seems to have been a real key, a real focus for people today. And I think that we have to say it is a mixed picture. I mean, you've heard from Greg, who's not quite a student, but not far off of that age group. And he rightly says, he's got fantastic soft skills. Tom has mentioned that when he's recruiting, he's seeing a lot of people come through that are appropriately qualified. And you've seen from 3 of our students who kicked off the discussion today, all of whom have got excellent soft skills. I certainly wouldn't decry what Ed's saying, that we need to make sure that we do develop that. And the way that we and schools, and I think there's been progress recently on that, are developing that is by making sure that we map those soft skills to our curriculum, by saying to students, this is what will be expected when you get a job. Now, I certainly wouldn't say that it's a done deal and that everything is resolved, but I do think there's been progress, and I think we can see that coming through. Although we do hear from employers who say to us still that they're finding that difficult, particularly when you're recruiting at that lower level, I think they also recognise that there's been an improvement. In the southeast, and particularly in this area, it's young people can leave their education and pretty well guarantee that they get a job of some description. But sometimes those jobs are not ones associated with training. And I think it's about all of us, educators, business leaders, those of us in public administration, to do everything we can to raise those aspirations so that when they do leave whatever study, whatever level of study they've decided to exit at, that they actually understand that they need to continue developing those skills. And I very much think there's an element for business to be into that. You know, if you employ a 16-year-old, they are probably likely to need mentoring and coaching. And yet we've heard from people around the table who have been saying that actually, if you can get that 16-year-old and mentor them and coach them, you're going to get a fantastic member of staff. I think we're seeing that more and more over the last few months.
Sure. Well, I've got to move this conversation on to kind of solutions and opportunities for collaboration. But Jane, I wanted to ask you, what's your role as far as young people, and how do you see some partnerships evolving, or what do you know about in this area that can help reduce youth unemployment?
Okay. At ILG, we recruit one graduate a year. We recruit one sandwich placement student a year. But most of our recruitment of young people is in apprenticeships. Most of those apprenticeships are young people who haven't attained grade C in English and maths. And we give them an opportunity to come into our warehouse and make a career. As Sarah said, it's a real mixed bag. Some are absolutely fantastic. I would say all of them come with very good IT skills, which is really essential to us. And numerous, as Ed and many others have said, come perhaps not really understanding the contractual relationship if you are paid a certain amount of money to get in on time, to leave at a certain time, to follow a certain process, to not use your mobile phone while you're at work, etc., etc. And sometimes to understand the consequences when they don't follow that process. And I very sadly had to do a disciplinary recently with an 18-year-old who wasn't prepared for that. So in terms of how we take that forward, what I would like to see us doing is, I think many of us around the table perhaps going to schools and we talk about interview skills and we talk about CVs and how to prepare for an interview. But maybe we then take it back and say, actually, let's talk about the contractual relationship of the world of work, and let's talk about what's expected. And when you don't meet those expectations, what the consequences might be. I like to think we're a good employer, and as Sarah said, we will coach these young people and we will give them buddies. We'll always give them a second, third, fourth chance, and we will do everything we can to keep them in employment. But some employers might not do that. And I think we have to make sure that young people are aware of that.
I think that's an excellent point. I want to just try and move this along. We talked about a lot of the problems, connected with young people into work, and I really want to try and, foster some solutions out of this group. I want to talk about any initiatives that are happening locally. Duncan or some of the political folks, do you have any initiatives that are out there currently? Anything that you see that any programs that we could develop to help with this issue?
Well, thank you. Well, certainly, as existing, we have for Crawley Borough Council and indeed West Sussex County Council both employ a number of apprentices, which is perhaps more about skill learning rather than reducing unemployment per se. This is a structural problem, I have to say, that we've got. It goes back decades. However well the economy has been doing, we've always had a structurally high number of young people who have been out of work. Nationally, it's not been so much an issue here. But in terms of initiatives, well, there's a whole host of initiatives that come from government. That over the years we've seen, back in the days of the YTS, I think it was called back in the 80s. There's been a whole host of them. The question I would have is, have any of them actually worked, and what is the best way going forward? I'm not saying that I've got the answer to that. If it was that easy, I think we would be there already.
Well, these are some political government programs. What about some business programs, Jeremy?
Can I actually just point at three people in the audience?
Sure.
I don't know if I want to give them too long because they won't stop.
Well, we're going to have a
talking.
Q&A right in just a couple of minutes.
But we've got Maddie from Young Enterprise, which is a very well-received scheme, and I've been involved with it recently. The disappointment is that the students who are involved with Young Enterprise tend to come from Horsham. We don't see many coming from Crawley at the moment.
And Georgina works with Takeoff, which is it's basically a careers advisory, but you can talk more about that. And then Matt and Lorraine have got the Young Startup Talent. So there's public sector, but there's also a lot of private sector energy as well. Someone's waving at the back with another scheme. Job Centre Plus as
Okay.
well. But
okay, well, but what about some private sector, some business-sponsored programs? Darryl and Guy, have you got any ideas from your big companies? And Tom, any initiatives you're focused on that you're sponsoring that are helping with this issue, or do you think they need to be?
Well, we're involved in all three of the things that Stuart.
And are you finding them to be effective?
Yeah, I find to be really effective. I think the key thing it's not only about whether it's effective for us as an organisation, but it's also what it does to our employers, so and our staff. So the people involved get a lot out of it themselves as well. So it's not just about putting something back in; it's also about the personal development of people within the team. And it comes back to the whole softer skills thing. So I think a lot of companies are wrestling with the CSR agenda, and I think the risk is it becomes just a tick box exercise. But actually, you've got to find something that people feel passionate about. So we actively encourage people to get involved in local initiatives, but it's got to be something they want to do. So we don't shove it down their throat and say you must do this, this, and this. But we say, look, you get 5 days a year, you go off and you do that, and you spend it how you want to. Be a school governor, run a local club, sit on these different committees, do the Dragons Den, etc., etc. But it's got to be what people want to do, because it comes back to if they're interested and they're passionate about it, then they'll commit to it and they'll do it rather than just tick a box to say that I'm managing that. So. There's no one scheme that we do, but we actively encourage people across the business to get involved with local schemes, and they're not all living locally here, so they might be doing something local to where they actually live. But
Tom, are you doing anything like that, Nestle?
Yes, we have a number of local initiatives within the communities where our office locations are. From an employability point of view, we've just launched 120 work experience opportunities from a national level. 20 of those are for people who are still at school, so below the age of 16, to develop those softer skills that we've been talking about. But also 100 to people who are out of work or education for a period of 6 months, to try and give them that opportunity to get that work experience. Mm-hmm. We've also got the School Leaver programme, and the thing that I find really challenging from my point of view is there's still this perception that you need to go to university to get the career that you should have. So a lot of innovation that's coming out in the marketplace is around apprenticeships and school leaver programs, but still there's the big emphasis on you must go to university to succeed, and that's the biggest challenge that we find.
Hey, well, Greg, what about these volunteer programs and these local initiatives that young people get involved in that these employers think are going to help them get into careers? Do you and your friends, like the sound of these kind of things? Do you get involved in them personally? Are you motivated to get involved in youth initiatives around volunteering and leadership?
We do. I mean, we do. We get involved with as much as you can. And a lot of it, some of it personally isn't interested to me. The fitness and charity runs, they're great for me because that's sort of an area that I like. But it seems that a lot of people just aren't interested in it because maybe they don't know what they are interested in, because if they've just come out of secondary school, maybe we don't know. But maybe it's a fact that these secondary schools aren't giving them enough idea, because I've noticed around here that we all talk about getting people into jobs. Why aren't we talking about getting people into self-employed jobs? Because I find that the better people are people who have gone it on their own, like a gentleman who owns Facebook. Everyone thinks he's a fantastic guy, did it on his own. And there's not enough schemes around here to get people into self-employed. Now, we've got a lot of people who high up in businesses. Now, that's great. They're going to talk about apprenticeships in their own company, of course. But we have got, sorry to do direct things, but we have got people at colleges and councillors and a member of parliament who, yes, the member of parliament has spoken about self-employment, but no one has really mentioned any schemes to help people get into the self-employment rather than employees. We need people to be employers to create jobs. That's why there's so much unemployment, because these schools are teaching us to be employers. Employees, not employers.
That's exactly right. Chris, what about are these schemes successful in your experience? Facilitating young people into careers, and what partnerships and initiatives do you know of that are having success?
I mean, the ones that Jeremy mentioned, I think, are successful. They probably don't have a broad enough reach at the moment, but I think we've talked a lot about what young people need to do, I think some of it is about what business needs to do as well, because business does tend to be quite impatient and expect the finished article. And therefore it is important that people prepare for taking somebody in on an internship, work experience or whatever, and give people proper experience. But I mean, taking up Greg's point, I mean, the college here, we do look at entrepreneurship, which is about how you might go about setting up your own business and giving people those skills as well. But at the end of the day, if we're looking at significant employment, it is going to be the big employers in this area who will provide that more immediate employment.
Sure, but if you're not giving them the initial idea of creating these large companies, how's unemployment going to go down?
I agree, but that's I say that's why the college is looking at entrepreneurship.
Sure, I understand
people.
each college will have their own entrepreneurship. It just seems that we're talking about unemployment, but it hasn't been mentioned enough to emphasise the fact that there is unemployment and there could be ways around it, which is my idea is self-employment. It's the only quickest way to gain other people jobs.
Yeah, I think so. You know, I do want to focus on entrepreneurship as a solution. It's something I promote, and also, you know, getting businesses involved actively in the classroom. You know, helping teach.
So I pay. You know, as I say, I don't really know what happens to my corporation tax. I pay every year. If the government turned around and said, "I tell you what, 1% would go to sponsoring or paying for the corporation tax of a startup of somebody between 18 and 24, so they don't have to pay any." That would be quite a good idea. That would be a bit radical and a bit, and that might be a bit too far for the government to go. But hey ho. And the other point I'd like to follow up with Greg is, yeah, I agree with him. I go to careers evenings and I get the little slot in the corner. I don't get the gig where it's about, no disrespect, the banker or the accountant or the lawyer, especially the blacking lawyer. You know, I get a little, and I've had to fight to get my 15 minutes of saying, tell you what, running your own business, it is bloody brilliant. It is fantastic. It's the best thing you can do. You know, some people might look at you a bit oddly and go, oh, you run your own business? Oh dear, well, what does that involve? Well, it does involve working at weekends. It does involve taking a bit of risk. But also it involves actually seeing your kids more often than not and taking a life choice and lifestyle choices and all that sort of thing. You know, but anyway, I'd like to hear what's...
Yeah, no, absolutely, and there are a number of schemes that have been recently introduced to particularly help small firms and start-up firms. So, for example...
the young people, though?
Well, young people or old people, because I
talk about young people here, aren't we?
No, sure, but across the spectrum. So, for example, business rates aren't payable anymore for small and start-up businesses. That's a significant burden that is reduced. Also, reduction in national insurance contributions as well for the smallest companies, and you know, very small employers.
Messages. If you put a massive sign up saying, right, if you want to start up your business at 18 to 24, it's actually piss easy. I don't see any general advertising. I mean, you know, I remember the old Charlie crossing the road in the 80s. Remember those TV programs that used to come on at 11 o'clock at night about warning stranger danger and all that sort of thing? Clearly didn't work, but hey ho, you know, if you put some of those on TV about, if you want to start your own business, it costs you, what, 200 quid to register your company, get a bit of finance. You can do it. Sure. You can bloody do it. And, you know, there seems to be a bit of, you know, simple ideas. The government has to get involved in. You have to.
Well, let's just let Henry finish here,
well,
and then we'll come right back to you on this.
No, I think that's right. I think we also need to be a little bit cautious about setting up businesses. It is relatively inexpensive to register a company. You can set up a business without even registering a company. Of course, you can be a sole trader before even formally registering. But we do need to bear in mind that sadly, and this has always been a fact, that the vast majority of startup businesses fail in the first year. And what I wouldn't want to do is encourage anybody of any age, young person or older, to set up a business if they hadn't, if they didn't have that motivation, if they hadn't researched the market, because otherwise I think what we're potentially doing is setting up people to waste a year or two of their lives and potentially get themselves into a bad debt situation. So I'm all in favour of entrepreneurship. and pursuing ideas, and self-employment can be a very good route. But there are dangers in that as well, and I think in terms of what government can do is try and reduce the amount of regulation for particularly small businesses, reduce the amount of things like, let's say, abolish business rates for the smallest businesses, reduce taxation, national insurance, which is just another tax after all, and those sorts of things. But also I think there's a responsibility amongst banks, and I think they are acting now responsibly in this way to ensure that they don't loan money to people to start up a business if they don't think that business is viable. Now, where that line is as to what's viable and whether the banks are now overly cautious or they weren't cautious enough in the past is a big debate. But entrepreneurship is what this country was founded on, but it isn't necessarily the answer to everybody's situation.
Sure. Well, we're pushing time a little bit, so I do want to invite the audience in for a few minutes of Q&A. I'm going to kick that section off with a couple of points, though. Firstly, what ideas do people have as an achievable goal for reducing disconnected youth, and what actions are we willing to take collectively to achieve this? And also, what partnerships have people spotted, or what partnerships currently exist between participants up here? I'd like to find out about that, and what ideas or what partnership opportunities have people in the audience spotted that would be some high potential for synergy? I want to kick off for a few questions, starting with this lady. Can we get the microphone over here, Pete? I'll repeat the question. Go ahead, madam.
Thanks very much. Is it on? Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, cool. Hi, my name's Georgina Angela. I work for lovelocaljobs.com. We're a family of local job boards. And Takeoff has been mentioned 3 times today, so I thought for those in the room who've no idea what that is, I thought I'd explain. It's a collaboration, it's a partnership between us and local authorities, including Crawley Borough Council and West Sussex County Council, and it's an employability microsite that sits within our job boards. It's focusing on Gatwick Diamond, and it involves working with local young people to make a resource for local young people. So the students involved, the creative designers, the 11 students are from Crawley, Horsham and Mid-Sussex. And basically it's a careers tool. And I'd like to thank the people around the table who've also been involved in helping us to get that out there, including Darryl from RBS, University of Brighton, Jeremy Taylor, Henry has also helped us, Chris has helped us, Tom Nestle has helped us. People from those organisations are videoed by young people and are in the resource. It is an initiative that we're growing throughout the area, and we'd love more people to be involved. It's sustainable, it's sustained by young people. So ultimately, it's young people taking control of their own employability, of their own career paths, of their own path through education, who's saying, this is what I want to know, and this is how I want to digest that information. So
sure,
that's Takeoff. I'm going to be quiet now because Jeremy did warn that I would probably talk for a bit.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Gentleman at the back there, blue tie.
I was going to say, there's also, I mean, to start of in talking about sort of young people setting up their own businesses, I think I probably will as well. I've got quite a big voice, and I mean, first of all, it's got to do with aspiration. Obviously encouraging people in aspiration. I mean, I grew up in Crawley, but I didn't go to school in Crawley. So I found that my education was very different to my peers of the same age group who went to school in Crawley. We had a very different aspirational grasp of things. And in terms of actually government schemes of what they're doing to what we're doing to help young people in business and then become self-employed, there is a startup business loan fund, which is aimed primarily at 18 to 24-year-olds, where they can get a loan of up to $2,500, and I think about 10,000. Sorry. Oh, is it any age now? Sorry.
Okay.
So
the question is about aspiration.
Yeah, I was saying about aspiration, but I was also just answering the question with saying that there is that funding there, which I think is about £82 million worth of funding. And I know there's been over 10,000 loans granted, but I think, as I say, it's crucial that people know that exists, because I haven't heard anyone actually there wasn't any mention of that really there, that it knows it exists, and it is increasing that young people that they actually can get that money, and it's through schemes like this, obviously your scheme, that that actually channels people like that.
Okay, let me just turn that into a question. Jane, I wonder if you can help me with this. We keep hearing about this. Is there an issue with young people in this area regarding ambition and aspiration, and that they're not motivated enough, and what's the solution to it?
I think it's, again, it's a mixed bag. So in terms of our apprentices, we offer opportunities to these young people who perhaps haven't achieved as much as they might do at school. And some of those young people actually grasp that, and the sky's the limit, and they can progress their career, and it's incredibly rewarding to see them do that. And some just don't have that same desire, and I don't know how we get over that. And so I can talk to these young people and say, if you can pass your apprenticeship, you're going to get a massive pay rise. Why are you not doing it? And I don't understand how we can tackle that or what we can do. And as Jeremy quite rightly said, we see that in our older workforce as well.
David, can I just put in
Go ahead.
Because I think aspiration is an issue. And one of the things that universities do, and all universities do, but with Brighton University we have a compact agreement that works with secondary schools. It's Central Sussex is also part of it, but we also work with primary schools, because the issue for us when you look back is that in terms of achieving high grades and having those understandings, and when you go into secondary schools, and if your secondary school is streamed in terms of the class that you'll be put into, to have that knowledge and that understanding and that drive actually from primary school, and to have positive role models when you might not necessarily have some of those role models in different types of careers in your community, is what that is about. So working at primary school level, and what we do is mentor, so secondary schools trying to have young people mentoring primary schools, colleges working with secondary schools, and university students mentoring secondary school students, and then business people from business mentoring university students. Because if you don't believe that you can achieve, you're not going to achieve. And we very much focus that back down to being actually having that understanding and trying to install something in you from primary school, rather than being hit with it at the age of 16 when you might be leaving school, or the age of 18 going on then. So
Sure.
it goes all the way back.
Okay, thank you. Question from the lady here in the blue dress.
It's great that we're doing things to help people that aren't motivated and don't have soft skills, but what about the ones that are motivated, do have soft skills, and still can't get better jobs and move further forward in the jobs that they do have?
Jeremy, can you answer that quickly?
No, not
Okay.
quickly.
It's the challenge.
I could never answer
so
a
I come to you.
question quickly. It's a bit sweeping, but I would hope that cream rises. If you've got people with the right attitude, we've talked all around the table about attitude and employability. Most people are fired for attitude and hired on skills. We mentioned this before. If you've got a degree, that gets you through something. But then the people that we let go, as a euphemism, are the ones that don't have the right attitude. If we find people with the right attitude, then hopefully they will rise, and they will fight and see their way forward. Just on the selection process, just my own little anecdote, if I may. Last round of recruitment, we had 8 applicants for an apprentice position. I rang all of them and I said at the beginning, I will interview you. Whatever the result of this phone call, I will interview you, and by the end of the phone call, we'll set a date for the interview. Your first task in the selection process is to email me to confirm that meeting. 3 did. So I didn't interview. It's great, saved me 5 interviews. But I think it's about it's how you stand out. I mean, Ed's obviously, you've talked about the young people and those that are willing and able. And again, in any industry, we want to find people who can do well for our businesses so that we can work less. We're actually quite lazy on this table. We want people to do our work for us.
Couple more points from the audience. Gentleman here.
Thanks. For those of you who don't know, Young Start Talent is an entrepreneurial initiative that inspires 16 to 25-year-olds to start their first business. And it's pretty much 97% run by the private sector. We work with every single school, college, university, youth group, prison, across Sussex, Surrey and Kent, apart from Central Sussex College. And at the moment, yeah. And really what I was trying to understand is, Chris, your comments regarding a broad enough reach to the target market. Is it not the fact that the reach isn't broad enough? Is it more about the fact that the people within education don't necessarily understand what entrepreneurship really is, or the core values behind entrepreneurship, so that then when they're faced with partners or collaborative partners from the outside world, they don't really know how to manage them, what to do with them, how to channel them, so then it's almost seen like a boundary before you get to those youngsters who are aspirational or who aren't aspirational.
Okay, Chris, how do young people better understand entrepreneurship?
No. How do people within education, not the youngsters, the youngsters get it, it's the people, the gatekeepers.
Chris, how do the gatekeepers better help young people into entrepreneurship?
I think the gatekeepers have a very difficult job balancing a number of initiatives, one of which is educating young people in entrepreneurship. Another one is achieving certain government targets. Another one is about getting people into employability skills, getting them to a certain level of maths and English, etc., etc., etc. I come back, you cannot put everything back down to the educators. It's a collaborative partnership. Everybody has a role to play. And I go back to the point I made earlier about role models. I think some of it does come from within your family, within your community, about what your aspirations should be.
Sure, I agree to that. Just a couple more real quick. This lady in the front.
Kelty is actually with me on work experience at the moment, which
Okay.
is quite interesting. But they're only giving us 3 days, which I don't think is enough. My question would be, why aren't the schools putting the younger children into work experience more often? Because then you would know what you're looking for.
Andy, why aren't young people getting into work experience more often?
Speaking for the college, we make every effort to put as many people as we can into work experience programs. I know we have actually been working on a big contract with schools to place something around 2,000 people into work experience, and we've been doing risk assessments and so on for them. So, there are challenges. There are challenges in convincing companies to take them on, believe it or not. I suppose it's like a lot of the things that we've said today. Education and business don't operate in a vacuum, and we do need more engagement between the groups and more working together. And I think that's both on work experience and also on things like apprenticeships as well. The reason why apprenticeships are so good in Germany, and there's so many of them, is partly because the partnership between educators and businesses is so very strong. It's really ingrained. So we need to ingrain the relationship more, and it needs to be from an earlier age.
That's great. Final question from the gentleman here. White. That's you.
Well, I point out that ACTA with strong trade associations usually the majority of training. I think we benefit by actually defining the issue locally, which really is a relatively small number of people who are long-term unemployed and young, because the vast majority of people find work within 6 months, and tackling the issue that a vast majority of local people are employed in relatively low-paid work, and will always, to some extent, be employed in low-paid work as long as that forms the majority of the local economy, and how we deal with that as a town to ensure that doesn't leave people stuck in economic deprivation. So I'm not sure all the arguments around entrepreneurship actually really cut to the heart of it. My real question, I suppose, is this. We talk a lot about aspiration, but what sits behind aspiration? And certainly going through the school system here, it was quite clear that a lot of people have lost hope at a certain point. And it's about that confidence which sits behind it. The reason people aren't being aspirational is they've lost that belief they can do it.
Yeah.
So the real question is, how do we tackle this underlying problem where a number of people, and it's usually around years 7 and 8, give up and say, well, I'm never going to be anything. I'm going to have this defence mechanism that I'm not going to try very hard, and therefore I can blame everything on that. As opposed to trying to say, well, actually, even if you can't reach the very top, you can still do pretty well for yourself in life.
Sure, well, I think that's an excellent point. I won't open that up to everyone else because I think that's the answer to that is kind of the takeaways from the round table. I find with these groups, we have similar discussions. There's no right or wrong answer, but the answers lie at the local level. I mean, Westminster and the folks in London can do everything they can, but it really starts with each one of us in the local community. It starts with the educators, it starts with the local businesses, it starts with the big employers in the country, it starts with getting young people motivated and skilled and prepared and giving them opportunities to get into work. And so, we're run out of time now. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to get to everyone. But I do want to thank everyone for coming here today. These discussions are so invigorating for me. I'm able to be a central sponge of all the information that flows in, and I think we can make a big difference nationally to for young people. I don't think there's any excuse for people being educated into to unemployment and underemployment anymore with all the technological resources we have. We have so much opportunity out there in the world now to be successful, whether it's here in in Sussex or around the country or around the world. And we just gotta pool all our collective resources and work hard. I want to encourage everyone that's been here on the round table to meet each other and to try and build partnerships with each other. We're going to stay in touch with you, Jeremy and Henry and Sarah and myself. We're also going to spend a few more minutes here. There's more food and everything. So I encourage you to meet each other and stay in touch. Networking collectively and building local relationships is really the fabric of how we solve this problem, and that's what I encourage. So I finally want to thank everyone for coming, but particularly Peter Street for organising this. Pete, you've been working with me for a couple of years, and I don't know how you do it. You always exceed expectations and put great events together. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone for being here. This has been a great event for me, and I just want to wish you all the best, and keep following our tour, and follow us on Twitter, and stay in touch with us. We can make a difference, and I'm sure that we will. So thank you very much.